Hey there, viewer. Before we dive into this super cool story, I need you to do something fun. Drop a comment below and tell me where you're watching from today. Are you at home, at school, or maybe somewhere totally awesome? Oh, and if you love wild stories about crazy stuff happening in neighborhoods, hit that subscribe button right now so you don't miss any more. Here's a question to grab your attention. What would you do if someone called the police on you, but they were the ones in huge trouble? That sounds exciting, right? Stay with me, because this story is packed with surprises that'll keep you glued to the end. It was a bright, sunny Saturday morning in a place called Meadow Hills. Meadow Hills was a quiet neighborhood with neat houses, green lawns, and tall trees that swayed in the breeze. Kids rode bikes, dogs barked happily, and neighbors waved to each other. It felt like the perfect place to have fun, and that's exactly what 12-year-old Timmy Parker was doing. Timmy was in his backyard holding a shiny new toy, a drone. If you've never seen a drone, imagine a tiny helicopter with four spinning blades that can fly high in the sky. This one was black and sleek, with a little camera that let Timmy see what it saw. Timmy's drone buzzed like a cheerful bee as it lifted off the ground. Up it went, higher and higher, zooming over the wooden fence around his yard. It soared past the big oak tree in the corner, then looped around the swing set where Timmy used to play when he was younger. Timmy's face lit up with a giant grin. He held the controller tight, moving the little sticks to make the drone dance in the air. To him, it wasn't just a toy. It was like being a pilot on a big adventure. He imagined flying over jungles, mountains, or even secret islands. "Whoa," he whispered as the drone spun in a circle. "This is the coolest thing ever." The backyard was Timmy's favorite spot. It had soft grass, a small patio where his mom sometimes read books, and a red picnic table where they ate burgers in the summer. Beyond the fence, he could see bits of the neighborhood, other houses, a few cars parked on the street, and the community clubhouse down the road. That clubhouse was where people met to talk about boring grown-up stuff, like rules for the neighborhood. Timmy didn't care about that. He just wanted to fly his drone and have fun. But not everyone in Meadow Hills was having a great day. Across the street, in a house with perfectly trimmed bushes and a shiny mailbox, someone was watching Timmy. Her name was Karen Wilson, and she was the president of the HOA. Now you might be wondering what an HOA is. It stands for Homeowners Association, which is like a group of grown-ups who make rules for the neighborhood. They decide things like how tall your grass can be or what color you can paint your house. Sounds boring, right? Well, Karen took it very seriously. Too seriously, if you ask most people. Karen was the nosiest person in Meadow Hills. If a kid left a skateboard on their driveway, Karen would notice. If someone's dog barked too loud, Karen would write it down. She carried a clipboard everywhere, like it was her job to catch people doing something wrong. Neighbors called her HOA Karen behind her back, and they weren't wrong. Karen loved rules more than anything, and she loved telling people what to do. That morning, Karen was standing at her window, peering through the curtains. Her eyes narrowed as she watched Timmy's drone zip around. To her, that buzzing little machine wasn't a toy, it was trouble, big trouble. She didn't like how it flew over fences. She didn't like how it made noise, and she really didn't like that Timmy looked so happy playing with it. "HMPH," she muttered to herself, crossing her arms. That thing is dangerous. It's probably spying on people. Of course, Timmy wasn't spying. He was just a kid having fun. His drone's camera showed him cool views of the neighborhood, like the tops of trees or the shiny cars parked nearby. He wasn't trying to cause problems. But Karen didn't care about that. She saw something she didn't like and she was ready to make a fuss, a big one. Timmy, meanwhile, was lost in his own world. He made the drone do a flip, laughing as it twirled in the air. Awesome, he cheered. The controller beeped softly, telling him the drone was working perfectly. He moved it toward the edge of his yard, letting it hover over the fence. From up there he could see the street where a few neighbors were walking their dogs. Everything felt peaceful, happy, like nothing could go wrong. But Karen had other plans. She stepped away from her window and grabbed her phone off the kitchen counter. Her lips pressed into a thin line, like she was about to do something important. She didn't just want Timmy to stop flying his drone, she wanted everyone to know she was in charge. She thought calling the police would teach Timmy a lesson. Maybe it would scare his mom, Lisa, too. Karen liked when people listened to her, and she was sure this would make them listen. What Karen didn't know was that her plan was about to go wrong. Really, really wrong. You see, Meadow Hills wasn't as perfect as it looked. There were secrets hiding behind those neat lawns and pretty houses. Secrets about Karen, secrets nobody expected. And Timmy's little drone was about to help bring them out into the open. Let's go back to Timmy for a second. He was still in his backyard, guiding his drone with a big smile. The sun was warm, the sky was blue, and he felt like he could fly forever. His mom, Lisa, was inside making lemonade. She bought Timmy the drone for his birthday, and she loved seeing him so excited. Lisa was the kind of mom who always had Timmy's back. If he fell off his bike, she'd help him up. If he had a bad day at school, she'd listen. And if someone like Karen tried to ruin his fun, well, Lisa wasn't afraid to speak up. Timmy didn't know Karen was watching him. He didn't know she was about to cause a big scene. All he knew was that his drone was flying higher than ever, and he felt like the king of the world. The little screen on his controller showed him everything: the green grass, the red roof of his house, even the shiny windows across the street. Wait a second, was that Karen standing at her window? Timmy squinted at the screen. Yup, there she was, glaring right at him, or maybe at the drone. He couldn't tell. Timmy said to himself. What's her deal? He shrugged and kept flying. Karen was always grumpy about something. Last week, she'd yelled at his friend Jake for riding his scooter too fast. The week before, she'd told Mrs. Lopez her flowers were too bright. Timmy figured she'd find something else to complain about soon enough. He wasn't worried, not yet. But Karen was already dialing her phone. She paced her living room, her voice loud and sharp. Yes, hello, she said when someone answered. I need to report a problem in Meadow Hills. There's a boy flying a drone and it's causing trouble. She made it sound like Timmy was doing something awful, like breaking windows or scaring pets. That wasn't true, of course, but Karen had a way of twisting things. Back in the yard, Timmy's drone zipped over the picnic table. He was trying to make it land softly, like a real pilot. Come on, little guy, he whispered. Nice and easy. The drone wobbled a bit, then settled on the grass. Timmy pumped his fist. Yes, nailed it. He was so proud, he almost didn't notice the sound of footsteps coming closer. heavy, angry footsteps. Across the street, Karen was ready to make her move. She hung up her phone, a smug smile on her face. She thought she'd won before the fight even started. But here's the thing about plans, they don't always work the way you want. Karen's call was about to set off a chain of events she never saw coming. And Timmy, he was about to become the hero of a story nobody in Meadow Hills would forget. This was just an ordinary day, or so everyone thought. Timmy was just a kid with a new toy. Karen was just a grumpy neighbor with a phone, but something big was brewing. Something that would turn a simple drone flight into the talk of the town. No one could have guessed that Karen's complaint was about to backfire in the most epic way possible. Want to know what happened next? Keep watching, because this story's only getting started. Karen Wilson was a name everybody in Meadow Hills knew. She wasn't famous for being nice or fun. Nope, she was famous for being super strict. Karen was the boss of the HOA, which is like a club that makes rules for the neighborhood. If someone's grass grew a tiny bit too tall, Karen would notice. If a kid left a bike in the driveway, she'd write it down on her clipboard. That clipboard was always with her, like it was glued to her hand. Neighbors whispered that she loved finding things to complain about. And now she had her eyes on Timmy Parker's new drone. Timmy's drone was just a cool toy that flew in the air, buzzing like a happy bug. But to Karen, it was a big problem. Drones are dangerous, she'd say to anyone who walked by. They can spy on people. Most neighbors didn't agree. They'd just roll their eyes and keep walking. Drones weren't spying, they were fun. Kids like Timmy used them to take pictures of trees or houses, not to be sneaky. But Karen didn't care what anyone thought. She was sure she was right, and she was ready to make a big fuss. That sunny Saturday, Karen decided she'd had enough of Timmy's drone. She stood in her house, peeking through her curtains, watching the little machine zip around Timmy's backyard. Her face got red and her eyes got narrow. "That boy is trouble," she muttered. Then she grabbed her phone and marched out her front door, her shoes clicking on the sidewalk. She crossed the street so fast, you'd think she was chasing a runaway dog. Timmy was in his yard, holding the drone's controller. The drone was flying low now, hovering over the grass like a tiny helicopter. He was smiling, trying to make it land just right, but then he heard a loud voice that made him jump. "Timothy Parker," Karen shouted. She was standing at the edge of Timmy's yard, right by the wooden fence. Her arms were crossed and her face looked like she'd just bitten a sour lemon. "You stop that flying menace right now, or I'm calling the police." Timmy froze, his fingers stopped moving on the controller and the drone wobbled in the air. Police? For his drone, he wasn't doing anything wrong, he was just playing, making the drone go up and down in his own yard. I'm not hurting anyone," he said, his voice small. He didn't want trouble, he just wanted to have fun. Karen's eyes were sharp, like they could see right through him. "Don't talk back to me," she snapped. "That thing is breaking HOA rules, it's loud, it's dangerous, and it's probably spying." She held up her phone like it was a weapon. "I mean it, Timothy, stop it now." Timmy's heart started to beat fast. He didn't know what to say. Spying? His drone wasn't spying. It just had a little camera to show him cool views like the tops of trees or his mom's flower garden. But Karen looked so mad, he was afraid to argue. He lowered the drone to the ground, its blades slowing down until it was quiet. He stared at the grass, wishing he could disappear. Now, just then, Timmy's mom, Lisa, heard the shouting. She was inside the house, pouring lemonade into a glass. She put the pitcher down and stepped onto the back porch. "What's going on?" she asked, looking from Timmy to Karen. Lisa was a kind mom who always stood up for Timmy. She had brown hair tied in a ponytail and a calm smile, but she wasn't afraid to speak her mind. When she saw Karen yelling at her son, her smile faded a little. "Karen, what's the problem?" she asked. Karen turned to Lisa, her nose in the air. "The problem," she said, "is that drone. It's a hazard. It's against the rules, and I'm not letting some kid ruin our neighborhood." Her voice was loud, like she wanted everyone on the street to hear. Lisa stayed calm. She walked over to Timmy and put a hand on his shoulder. "Karen, it's just a toy," she said. "Timmy's playing in our yard. He's not bothering anyone." But Karen wasn't listening. She shook her head so hard her earrings jangled. A toy," she said, like Lisa had said something crazy. "That thing could crash, it could hurt someone, and who knows what he's recording with it." She pointed at Timmy, who was holding the controller tightly, his cheeks turning pink. "Karen, he's 12, Lisa said, keeping her voice steady. "He's not a spy, he's a kid having fun. Maybe you could relax a little." Karen's face got even redder. "Relax," she huffed. "I'm protecting this neighborhood. You wouldn't understand, Lisa. Some of us care about rules." Then, with a big, smug grin, she held up her phone again. "I've had enough of this nonsense," she said. She tapped the screen and put the phone to her ear. Now Timmy's stomach twisted. Was she really doing it? He looked at his mom, hoping she'd know what to do. Lisa frowned but didn't say anything yet. She just watched Karen, her eyes narrowing a tiny bit. "Yes, hello, officer," Karen said into the phone, loud enough for the whole street to hear. "This is Karen Wilson from Meadow Hills. I need you to come right now. There's a drone harassing our neighborhood." She paused, nodding like she was proud of herself. "Yes, it's a safety issue. A boy is flying it and it's out of control." Timmy's heart sank. Harassing, out of control, that wasn't true. His drone was just sitting on the grass now, not even moving. He wanted to yell that Karen was lying, but his throat felt tight. He didn't know what the police would think. Would they take his drone away? Would he get in trouble? He looked down at his sneakers, wishing this was all a bad dream. Lisa squeezed Timmy's shoulder. "It's okay, buddy," she whispered. "You didn't do anything wrong." But Timmy wasn't so sure. Karen sounded so confident, like she knew she'd win. And the way she kept glaring at him made him feel small, like he'd done something awful just by playing. Karen kept talking on the phone, making the story sound worse and worse. "It's been flying over houses," she said. "It's scaring people. You need to send someone fast." She smiled as she spoke, like she was enjoying herself. To her, this was a game and she was sure she was the winner. But what Karen didn't know was that things weren't going to go her way. Trouble was coming, all right, but not for Timmy. The neighborhood was quiet now, but it was like a storm was building. Neighbors were starting to peek out their windows, wondering what all the shouting was about. A few stepped onto their porches, watching Karen wave her arms and talk into her phone. Timmy's hands were sweaty as he held the controller. He didn't understand why Karen hated his drone so much. He hadn't flown it near her house or done anything to make her mad. But Karen didn't need a good reason. She just wanted to be in charge, to make everyone do what she said. And right now, she thought she had Timmy and Lisa right where she wanted them. Lisa crossed her arms, watching Karen closely. "You're making a big deal out of nothing," she said, loud enough for Karen to hear. But Karen just smirked and kept talking to the police. She thought she was so smart, calling 911 like it would scare Timmy into never flying his drone again. The air felt heavy, like something big was about to happen. Timmy's yard was silent except for the soft chirping of birds in the trees. The drone sat on the grass, its blades still. Karen stood tall, her phone pressed to her ear, thinking she'd won. But she was wrong. Something was coming, something she never expected. And it was going to turn this sunny Saturday into a day nobody in Meadow Hills would forget. Karen was still yelling into her phone, standing at the edge of Timmy's yard. Her voice was loud, like she wanted the whole world to hear how bad Timmy's drone was. "It's a safety hazard," she said again, waving her free hand in the air. "You need to come now." Timmy's heart was beating fast. He didn't want the police to think he was a troublemaker. He was just a kid playing with a toy. Timmy pressed a button on his controller and his drone came down softly onto the grass. It stopped buzzing and sat there, quiet and still. He stepped back onto the porch where he could watch Karen without being too close. His stomach felt all twisty, like when you're nervous before a big test. He didn't know what was going to happen. Would the police really come because of his drone? Would they take it away? He chewed his lip, trying not to worry too much. But then something caught his eye. Down the street near the community clubhouse, Timmy saw two police cars. They were parked right by the big sign that said Meadow Hills. The cars had been there for a while, he realized. That was weird. Why were they at the clubhouse? Nobody was having a party or anything. The clubhouse was usually empty on Saturdays except for boring grown-up meetings. Timmy tilted his head, curious. What was going on? Karen didn't notice the police cars. She was too busy talking on her phone, making her story sound bigger and scarier. "Yes, officer," she said loudly. "It's been flying all over the place. It could crash any second." Timmy frowned. That wasn't true. His drone had only flown in his backyard and he was super careful. But Karen kept going, like she was telling a wild tale about a monster, not a little toy. Timmy's mom, Lisa, was standing next to him on the porch. She leaned down and whispered, "Don't worry, buddy, she's making a fuss over nothing." Her voice was calm, like always, and it made Timmy feel a tiny bit better. Lisa was good at fixing problems. When Timmy forgot his homework, she'd help him find it. When he scraped his knee, she'd put on a band-aid and make him laugh. Maybe she could fix this too. But Timmy wasn't so sure. He kept thinking about Karen. She wasn't just grumpy, she was mean. He'd heard things about her, little bits of gossip from neighbors when they thought kids weren't listening. Like how Karen would fine people for silly reasons, like having a mailbox that was too rusty. Or how she'd walk around at night, peeking into yards to check for rule breakers. One time, his friend Jake said he saw Karen looking through someone's trash cans. Why would she do that? Was she hiding something? Timmy's brain felt like a puzzle with missing pieces. He wanted to know more. He looked at Karen again. She was packing now, back and forth, still talking to the 911 operator. Her face was red and her eyes were shiny, like she was excited to cause trouble. Timmy wondered why she cared so much about his drone. It wasn't hurting anyone, it wasn't even loud. Maybe she just liked being the boss of everything, or maybe there was another reason, something secret. The idea made Timmy's curiosity grow bigger, like a balloon getting ready to pop. Lisa noticed Timmy staring. "What's on your mind, kiddo?" she asked softly. Timmy pointed down the street. "Mom, look," he said, "those police cars, they're by the clubhouse. Why are they there?" Lisa turned to look, her eyebrows going up a little. "Huh," she said, "that's strange. Maybe they're checking on something." Timmy nodded, but he couldn't shake the feeling that it was important. The clubhouse was where the HOA had its meetings. Karen was the boss of the HOA, so maybe the police were there because of her. But why? What could she have done? Timmy's mind raced with ideas. He wasn't scared anymore. He was curious, like a detective in a mystery story. Minutes went by, slow and quiet. Karen was still on her phone, but she sounded like she was wrapping up. "Thank you, officer," she said, her voice all smug. "I'll wait right here." She hung up and crossed her arms, smiling like she'd just won a prize. She looked at Timmy and Lisa, her chin up high. "You'll see," she said, "the police will take care of this." Now Timmy didn't say anything. He just watched her, his eyes flicking back to those police cars down the street. Something wasn't right. He could feel it, like when you know a storm's coming even though the sky is clear. Lisa patted his shoulder. "Ignore her," she said. "She's just trying to scare us." But then something happened. A third police car rolled into the neighborhood, its lights off but moving slow. It stopped right in front of Timmy's house. Timmy's heart jumped. Was this because of Karen's call? He gripped the porch railing, waiting to see what would happen. Two officers got out, but they didn't come toward Timmy's yard. They stood by their car, looking around. At the same time, Timmy noticed movement by the clubhouse. The officers from the other two police cars were walking now. They weren't heading to Timmy's house, they were going straight toward Karen's house across the street. Timmy's eyes got wide. The officers looked serious, like they had a big job to do. One of them was holding a folder full of papers. The other was talking into a radio, his voice too quiet to hear. Karen didn't see them yet. She was too busy staring at Timmy, her smile big and mean. She thought the new police car was for her complaint. She thought she was in charge, but Timmy could tell something was off. Those officers from the clubhouse weren't here for his drone. They were here for something else, something about Karen. Timmy leaned forward, his hands tight on the railing. His nervousness was turning into excitement. What was going on? Why were the police at Karen's house? He remembered more of the neighbor gossip now. Like how Mrs. Lopez said Karen was always collecting money for the HOA, but the park never got fixed. Or how Mr. Chen said he got a fine for something he didn't even do. Could those things be clues? Was Karen in trouble? Lisa noticed the officers too. She tilted her head, watching them walk closer to Karen's house. "That's interesting," she said under her breath. Timmy looked at her. "Mom, do you think it's about Karen?" he whispered. Lisa shrugged, but her eyes were sharp. "Maybe," she said. "Let's see what happens." The air felt heavy now, like right before something big. Neighbors were starting to come outside. Mr. and Mrs. Lopez stood on their lawn, whispering to each other. Jake's dad was by his garage, holding a rake and staring. Even old Mrs. Carter peeked out her door, her little dog yapping. Everyone could tell something was up. Karen was still clueless. She hadn't turned around to see the officers coming her way. She was too busy gloating, thinking she'd scared Timmy and Lisa. But Timmy wasn't scared anymore. He was watching, waiting like a kid who knows the best part of a movie is coming. His drone was forgotten on the grass. This was way more exciting than flying. The officers were almost at Karen's house now. One of them looked at the papers in his folder, then back at the street. Timmy's heart beat faster. He didn't know what was about to happen, but he could feel it. Something huge was coming, something that would change everything. Karen's phone call was about to turn into a big mistake, and Timmy couldn't wait to see what happened next. Karen Wilson stood tall at the edge of Timmy's yard, her phone still in her hand. She'd just hung up with the police, and she was feeling like the queen of Meadow Hills. She turned to Timmy, her lips curling into a big, smug smile. "You're in for it now, young man," she said loudly, like she was announcing it to the whole world. She pointed at Timmy, thinking she'd won. She thought the police were coming to tell him off for flying his drone. Oh, how wrong she was. Timmy was on his porch, his drone sitting quietly on the grass. He felt nervous, but he was also curious. He'd seen those police cars by the clubhouse earlier, and he knew something strange was going on. Before Karen could say another word to him, a deep voice cut through the air. "Karen Wilson," it called, "we need to speak with you." Karen froze, her head whipped around and her eyes got wide. Two police officers were walking toward her from across the street. They weren't the ones from the new police car that had just pulled up. These were the officers Timmy had seen